Hey guys, Manic Mercurian here, and in this video we are going to be looking at the compatibility of Sagittarius with all the 12 signs, including itself, Sagittarius. And okay, so before we begin, there's just a couple things we want to note. So this not only applies to sun, it's not just sun sign astrology, so we're not just talking about Sagittarius Sun. You can also pay attention to this if you have other placements in Sagittarius, especially like the moon or ascendant, or if someone else does and you're looking for them. Even the other inner planets as well, like Mercury, Venus, or Mars. You can sort of apply this to any planet, especially the inner planets. And then the other thing I want to mention is, what is Sagittarius looking for, just generally speaking? So generally speaking, this is an outgoing sign. It's energetic, it's fiery, but it is mutable at the same time, so it's kind of multifaceted. So Sagittarius is definitely outgoing, but it can be actually kind of introverted as well. It's very emotional, but can also be very thoughtful and logical and very mentally oriented. So it's Sagittarius can get along with many different types of personalities. I think what Sagittarius is looking for the most is some fun, basically. Sagittarius likes to have a good time. So let's begin. So first we start with Aries and Sagittarius, and this combination almost makes me laugh because it's definitely a good one. They'll definitely get along. They have a lot in common. These are both fire signs, and so of course they're gonna have a lot in common. They're both energetic and fiery and outgoing. They both like to start things, have adventures, and they're both very physically oriented. So they want to go out and have some fun. Let's do something. The part that makes me laugh is, like, I feel like they could almost get into trouble because these are the two less stable fire signs, since neither is fixed. And fire is already a bit of an unstable element. It's, if you think about fire itself, it can be explosive, or it can burn very quickly, and it's a beautiful flame, and it's warm and vibrant, but it can be difficult to manage, and these are not the most consistent of the fire signs. And so I don't know, I think they could almost be like reckless together, or they could have too much fun and go to some extremes maybe. Let's see here. And then they could also be like belligerent, maybe like kind of upset or annoy other people. But I think Sagittarius and Aries together themselves, they would have a blast. They would have a great time. So overall, yeah, this combination definitely does work well. They have more in common than they do different. And so this combination, they would naturally be friends. They would gravitate toward each other. And this combination does have a trine aspect, which always happens with signs with the same element. Next is Taurus and Sagittarius. And these signs are 5 signs apart. And so this makes a quincunx aspect. And this dynamic happens when you basically can't have less in common between these two signs. They have different polarities. They have different elements, different seasons, different modes. They have you literally can't be more different. Even opposite signs have more in common than Sagittarius and Taurus do. Taurus is very grounded and earthy and practical, and it just wants to be stable and low key, low drama. Sagittarius is very dramatic and very theatrical. It likes to have adventures, and so yeah, these really don't have a lot in common at all. For a Taurus person and a Sagittarius person to really get along and understand each other, they're going to have other elements in the chart that, indicate that. They're going to have some kind of common ground in their chart that they can relate to other than these two energies, because these two energies just don't mesh well. They're so different that they would have to completely compromise in order to make each other happy. But it would be to the point where neither would be fully getting what they wanted, because they just want different things. Sagittarius is so outgoing and just, let's just have fun, let's just be crazy and make stuff happen. Taurus is more careful, more responsible. So Taurus may seem boring to Sagittarius, and Sagittarius may seem reckless to Taurus. And this is common when you combine, a more outgoing yang dominant sign with a more introverted yin sign. Let's see what else here. That's really the main of what I see. I think the only thing that they could have in common is that they can both be a little bit self-indulgent, both like to enjoy themselves and treat themselves, but they would do so in very different ways. I mean, so yeah, again, they'd really have to have other astrology to connect with. Now we have Gemini and Sagittarius, which are directly opposite one another. And I always say, of all of the opposing signs, of all the opposing pairings, Gemini and Sagittarius get along the best. Why? Because they are the yang mutable polarity. So not only are they both yang, they're fire and air. Fire and air are more outgoing, and so they're naturally going to be more open to other energies and open to interacting with energies that are different than themselves. But also they're both mutable, and both mutable energies always want to learn, and mutable energies are sort of curious about energies that are different from themselves, especially these yang mutable signs. And so Gemini and Sagittarius, even the things that they might be different on, they are both curious and open to those differences and may actually enjoy those differences in each other. And so this pairing actually works really, really well. They actually have a lot in common. When I was trying to guess people's sun signs, it was impossible for me to distinguish Geminis and Sagittarius for some reason, especially females. I don't know why, but yeah, they have a lot in common. So both of these signs, they're both kind of mentally oriented, and they can be intellectual and they want to learn, but they're also both just, they just want to have a good time. They want to have fun. They're both very open to many different kinds of experiences. So I could definitely see this pairing going on adventures, or they both can be very humorous as well. So they might just joke a lot or make fun of people or something. Yeah, I don't know. This combination, they're both just so open to kind of doing like anything. They just want to have something interesting happen, something fun or novel. Let's see what else. Both are curious, expressive, intellectual, jovial, or comedic. The main difference here is that, okay, actually, let me start it this way. So I think the most potential for trouble here, or a problem to arise, is that they may think that the other one is more similar to themselves than they actually are, because especially at first they both come off somewhat similarly. I think they have that potential, being kind of quirky and animated and observant and intellectual. So they may think that they have a lot more in common than they actually do, and where that can bring them into trouble is that Sagittarius is much more emotional than Gemini. I think that's the biggest difference, and that's the biggest potential for trouble here. So Gemini may mistakenly not realize that Sagittarius is actually very sensitive and very passionate, and Sagittarius may mistakenly, or not realize, but assume, or they may make that mistake. And Sagittarius may, assume or make the mistake of thinking that Gemini is very passionate and emotional like they are. Gemini is always very scattered and likes to be kind of shallow, not commit too much to anything. But Sagittarius feels very passionately and wants to devote itself to one thing, or maybe just like a couple things, rather than spreading its energy everywhere. And so, I don't know, I think maybe, how do I put this? I don't know, they can both maybe incorrectly assume that they want the same thing when actually they do have different approaches in that regard. I think that's the main potential for trouble. That could lead to some hurt feelings or some misunderstandings, even some fights maybe. But that's really the only potential for trouble here, or misunderstanding. Other than that, this is a great combination. I think they could both learn a lot or have a lot of experiences together and have a lot of fun together. So all in all, I really like this combination. And I should mention too, if you're talking about ascendant in these signs, ascendant in Sagittarius or ascendant in Sagittarius or Gemini, I'm just running my words together, but if you're talking about ascendant in one of these signs, then they would especially be attracted to each other. So ascendant in Gemini and ascendant in Sagittarius, they will be very much attracted to each other, because ascendants are always attracted to the descendant, or the opposite sign of the ascendant. Next we have Cancer. So again, we're quincunx again. So just like Taurus, Cancer has pretty much nothing in common with Sagittarius. There's one thing in common that I'll talk about in just a moment, but again, this, Sagittarius is fire, Cancer is water. Sagittarius is late fall, Cancer is early summer. Sagittarius is yang, Cancer is yin. Sagittarius is mutable, Cancer is cardinal. There's no context, there's nothing for them to grasp on to understand each other, especially if you look at what these signs rule. I mean, so Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, which is, if we're just talking about the visible planets out to Saturn, Jupiter roams the farthest away from the sun within the confines of Saturn. Saturn is like the limit or the cap, and Jupiter wants to roam the farthest. So that's where you get Sagittarius wanting to roam around in an adventure. Sagittarius is all about, adventuring and experiencing other customs, other lands, or experiencing wild adventures. And Cancer is not about that at all. Cancer is a homebody. Cancer wants to stay at home. Cancer craves whatever is familiar to it. And so I think when we talk about the themes of these signs, they're almost more strikingly different even than Taurus, even than grounded, stable Taurus. But really, Taurus and Cancer are both kind of stable and consistent, and this just isn't like Sagittarius at all. Sagittarius doesn't want to be consistent. Sagittarius wants new things and adventures. So the amount of new stimuli that Sagittarius requires would be overwhelming, stressful, maybe seen as just overly dramatic or unnecessary to Cancer. And likewise, Sagittarius would be bored just staying at home all the time, or, just doing familiar things that Cancer wants to do. So they're just kind of incompatible. They're very different. The one similarity in astrology is that there is a Jupiter connection to both Sagittarius and Cancer. Jupiter rules Sagittarius, it has its domicile there, but then it's exalted in Cancer. And so I don't know, I think this more applies to like an archetypal level than it does to actual compatibility. But both Cancer and Sagittarius have this kind of like not adventure mentality, but like almost like a roller coaster mentality. They're both very emotional, very passionate, and I think that, I don't know, that sort of emotional attitude, that passionate attitude, they're both so sincere, and I think something about their approach leads them to have very interesting life stories where their life is like an adventure. When that Jupiter element comes into play, their life can be very dramatic, and I don't know, just such deep things can happen to them. These are both deep signs. But again, this is more on a archetypal or like a non-physical level. I don't think this wouldn't be something that they could necessarily relate to, again, unless there's something else in the astrology that is pointing to them getting along, or or let's say you have a Sagittarius Sun, but their chart is very airy. There's got a ton of air planets, and then you've got a Cancer Sun, but then their chart is very airy. Well, of course they'll be able to get along with all the air planets. They'll be able to understand each other, and then the Sagittarius and the Cancer would just provide some quirky differences. So they would need something else to see eye to eye or to understand each other, because these signs alone just do not. They're too different. They're like oil and water. They just do not. They're like fire and water, I guess. Fire and water make steam. Water can put out fire, rain on the parade, but then fire can also boil the water. So this doesn't really work. Next we have Leo, and again, now we're dealing with trining signs again, so signs of the same element. And this works really, really beautifully. I think even better than Aries and Sagittarius, because remember I said Aries could be almost too much, or they could be too unstable. But with Leo, you have this fixed fire, and so Leo and Sagittarius are a little bit less intense than Aries, because Aries is more, ruled by Mars. It's more of like a warrior energy. It's more competitive. And I think with Sagittarius and Leo, they may definitely be competitive. They're still both fire signs, so they're outgoing and very active. But I think these are more just fun, kind of playful signs. They're both ruled by benefics, with Leo being ruled by the Sun and Sagittarius being ruled by Jupiter. So they're both just wanting to have a good time and wanting to have fun, wanting to party. Again, I think the main issue would be them getting along too well. Maybe annoying or offending other people because they're so outgoing and so brash and belligerent, and they're having such a good time that they don't care about that maybe they're upsetting other people. Or the other trouble I could see is that they're having too much of a good time, they're partying too much, they're overindulging, and that can lead to a lot of issues as well. Especially Leo, Leo being the fixed fire sign, well, and Sagittarius for that matter. Sagittarius being ruled by Jupiter, which is expansion. They want to do everything big and grand. So yeah, they can definitely be maybe too theatrical or too just doing things too much, having too big of a party or partying for too long. That can be fun for a long time, but if you don't let go of the fun, it turns into an addiction. So, or it turns into a bender or you can't. It's fun to maybe get drunk for a party, but if you stay drunk for 3 days, that's where you encounter some problems. So I think these are the types of issues that Leo and Sagittarius might face together. It's almost like too much of a good thing, too much fun. Being I don't even know the word. Like they're just so ready to have a good time. They're so outgoing. They're so active. It's just too much of a good thing that can happen though. But generally speaking, this is a really beautiful combination. Again, they're trining, so they have so much in common. It's just gonna be easy. They're both fire, so it's especially for friendship, because I think generally speaking, I think relationships require a little bit more difference, a little bit more contrast to make things kind of sexy. So with these signs that are very similar to me, this seems like friendship signs, and you can still have a relationship with these signs if you have some other, depending on what else is going on in the chart. But yeah, I see, just if we're just talking about the signs themselves, I see Sagittarius and Leo very much as being really good friends. So yeah, this is a great combination. Next is Sagittarius and Virgo. I think of all the different combinations, this one is the most interesting to me because so there's a lot going on here, and part of this is subjective. I've just noticed in my personal life, I've noticed I am a Virgo that has been attracted to Sagittarius because of my own astrology, but I've also noticed this in other people as well, that Virgo and Sagittarius can be very much attracted to each other for some reason. And the reason, I suppose, is they are both mutable, and there actually is if we're talking sort of elementally or from a like astrological standpoint or a mythical standpoint, there is a centaur connection with both of them, because Sagittarius is ruled by, a centaur. It's usually an archer, and Virgo is of course ruled by the maiden, so there's no centaur there. But Virgo also has a connection to Chiron. Chiron is sort of at home in Virgo. Chiron relates more to Virgo than any other sign, and then Chiron is a centaur as well. And Chiron was, not to delve super into that story, but Chiron was a more tame centaur, because the centaurs, generally speaking, were belligerent, and they would just get drunk and party, and they were just belligerent and crude. But occasionally you'd get one that was very sophisticated, and they can actually be very intelligent. They could be profound, teachers, gurus. And Chiron was one of these more civilized, I guess you could say, centaurs. So I think there is a connection there. And with the centaurs, again, the main theme of the centaur is that they're half human. I don't think I've covered this yet in this video, actually, but the main theme is that they're half human, half beast. And so they are different than all the other emblems and images in astrology, because all the other signs are either ruled by a person, so they're mentally oriented and cerebral and analytical, or they're ruled by an animal, so they're more animalistic, more emotional. Centaurs are both, and so Sagittarius is very much emotional, but it's also very much cerebral and analytical. And I think Virgo has like almost a side to that as well, because people don't realize how emotional and sensitive Virgo is. It really is, and you see that with Chiron. So I think that this is a long story, but it's coming back now that, I do think that these signs can relate to this aspect. And I think Virgo they can both enjoy each other's more cerebral side, because, of course, Sagittarius does have that party animal side that, that's where they'll get along with signs like Leo and Aries. And But then Sagittarius also has that cerebral side where they can definitely get along with like Gemini or Virgo. Um, you know, Virgo and Sagittarius both want to learn. They can both analyze and detach. And so Virgo is going to bring out that more intellectual side of Sagittarius. And they, 'cause almost like with Gemini and Sagittarius, Virgo and Sagittarius will both, I think it will be a connection based on differences, because don't get me wrong, they do have a lot different about each other that's not in common. Virgo likes consistency, it likes things to be controlled, it's very organized. Sagittarius is not those things at all. It just wants to, you know, be random, just let the chips fall where they may. Let's just make stuff happen. And so I think especially like in a living situation, they would drive each other crazy because Virgos are gonna want everything to be tidy and organized, and will be annoyed that Sagittarius is so messy, and Sagittarius will not care that much. It's gonna be more easygoing, and it's gonna be annoyed that Virgo is so controlling. So, or you know, anal retentive, I guess, in comparison. So there's a lot not in common, especially for living with each other. Also, just in general, you know, Virgo is more of a conservative, practical sign. Sagittarius is more outgoing, wants to party. So again, you know, Virgo could see Sagittarius as reckless. Sagittarius could see Virgo as boring. But then back to where, kind of what I was talking about at the beginning, I think the connection would be more intellectual. So like, I almost see this as a really great placement for like kind of friends or maybe acquaintances or like coworkers. They could both have really, really interesting conversations because they would have sort of different perspectives, but they would be able and appreciative. They would be able to understand and appreciative of each other's differing perspectives because they both want to learn. They can both sort of entertain someone else's idea, even if it's kind of very much different than where they stand. I know Virgos can sometimes be very closed off to some extent, but the Sagittarius can too. They can both be very blunt as well. They both are kind of very honest and blunt at times, I would say. So yeah, I think, I don't know. I've talked about this a lot, but again, I would say maybe not so much for like a really close, intimate relationship, or like a family type of relationship might be kind of strenuous. But I would say, I don't know, as friends, and again, we're just talking about the signs themselves, but I don't know, it's very much hit and miss. These signs are square, so there's going to be that clash there. But then when you're combining mutable signs that are squaring each other, they're still open to that difference or that contrast. So it really depends with this one. Like, I can't even say, you know, if I say yes or no to this. I think I would have to say no. Like, elementally, they are different. They're square by sign. Virgo is so careful. Sagittarius is so not careful. Open to just doing whatever, you know. More permissive, or I guess liberal, classic liberal, you could say. Also, Sagittarius just wants so much freedom and room to roam, and Virgo doesn't want that. Virgo wants security. It wants things to be measured. Sagittarius doesn't want things to be measured. I guess overall, I would have to say no. However, I do have to note that I think there could be some beautiful conversations with this combination, and really bring out that intellectual side. Okay, next we have Libra and Sagittarius. So, okay, this combination is kind of interesting. So, this almost reminds me of Leo, even though Libra is definitely an air sign. But we're combining two signs that are ruled by benefics again, with Sagittarius ruled by Jupiter and Libra ruled by Venus. And so you have that combination of them both wanting to have a good time and just enjoy themselves, you know, treat themselves. And I think Libra likes other signs to lead. Like, Libra can be attracted to fire signs, for instance, just because Libra likes to have someone to bounce their ideas off of. Libra likes to hang out with people who are more decisive than they are, or more bold or more outgoing, because they kind of like to, they could like to kind of shadow other people sometimes, or, you know, just have someone more assertive than they are to bounce their ideas off of. And so Libra could be very much attracted to Sagittarius, especially a more fiery Sagittarius. I think the more mutable aspect of Sagittarius, where Sagittarius can be kind of indecisive and more quiet, or more, you know, overthinking, And I don't think those attributes would be attractive to Libra at all, because Libra kind of already is those things, and Libra's looking for something different than itself. It's looking for, like I said, a more outgoing energy. And so this energy is kind of hit and miss. It really is. I think on a archetypal level, you would think that Libra and Sagittarius would get along better, but in my experience, I haven't really observed that. I haven't observed that they mesh very well together. I don't know. Maybe whoever's watching this, maybe you're like, I know examples. I don't know. Maybe you do. I just haven't seen that. But yeah. So generally speaking, I don't know. I think Libra would be more attracted to other fire signs that are more decisive and more fiery, like Leo or Aries, than it necessarily would be to Sagittarius. I think Sagittarius is too scattered. Libra is kind of scattered too, but it's more. I would say Libra is more. Oh, I'm forgetting the word, but It's more thinking about, is it this way or that way? It's putting everything into polarities or dichotomies. Whereas Sagittarius is more scattered and just, Libra won't appreciate that scattered energy, because Libra is like forever thinking, is it this way or that way? And it wants someone to come in to be the tiebreaker and with itself, I guess, and then say, give its opinion so Libra can kind of go off of that. But if Sagittarius comes and Sagittarius is all scattered and there's so much going on, it's so multifaceted and so dynamic, I don't think that would be attractive to Libra. Libra might enjoy the contrast there, and there's a lot to analyze, I guess. And Sagittarius could enjoy. I don't think Sagittarius would enjoy Libra either. I don't know. These signs, like, again, on a archetypal level, they should work together, but they just don't for some reason. I don't know. I think there's just not. They're not really looking for the same things. I guess they're looking to enjoy themselves, and they both kind of enjoy other people, but their approaches are very different, I feel like. If Sagittarius wants someone that will just adventure with them or maybe be intellectual, I guess they both can be kind of intellectual, or they both can be kind of self-indulgent, and so they could kind of enjoy doing the same things. I just feel like their approaches are generally very different. And so this combination is also another weird one where technically they sextile. It should be beautiful. They should be, typically with sextiling signs that are two apart, they're different enough to learn from each other, but similar enough to understand each other. And so you may have that dynamic here. But I would say, generally speaking, I just don't see this. It's supposed to work, but it just doesn't for some reason. I don't know. Hopefully that makes sense to you. I'm just going to leave that there. So next we have Scorpio. And Scorpio is only one sign away from Sagittarius, so these are semi-sextiling now. And with semi-sextiling aspects or signs, it's very hit and miss. It's because, again, there's really not much in common. It's almost like quincunx signs, except the one thing that these signs do have in common is that they're just next to each other, so that they're born into the same context. So sometimes I would describe semi-sextiling signs as being like siblings, kind of, because they are born into the same context, the same environment, but they can be very different. A Scorpio is so, it's fixed and it's water, so it's going to want security. And Sagittarius doesn't want security. Sagittarius wants to get out of its comfort zone, experience something new, experience adventure. And this would be destabilizing to Scorpio. Scorpio already feels such an extreme range of emotion, and that's something that they actually have in common. They both are very emotional, very passionate, experience an extreme range of emotion. But Sagittarius likes to get lost in adventure, and Scorpio wants to stabilize. Scorpio is very attracted to earth signs that can make it feel stable, or maybe like Cancer. Anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent here, but Scorpio wants security, and it wants signs that could be consistent and grounding for it, that can aid its groundedness and sense of security, and can make Scorpio feel okay with these extremes of emotion. And Sagittarius would not do that at all. Sagittarius would almost make it feel less stable, because it's fire and it's expansive. So so they really wouldn't help each other. Also, if Sagittarius wants to just adventure, and I don't see Scorpio as being the most adventurous sign. I think Scorpio. I'm mixing my words again. I think Scorpio could be adventurous in the sense of going really deep into a subject, or like adventurous, like sexually, or adventurous, learning about like an occult topic, or they could be adventurous like that, but it's not, I don't know if you want to call that adventurous, because it's kind of just going really deep into one thing. Where Sagittarius wants to actually like get out, in the world and have this whole huge adventure, which I don't know if Scorpio necessarily wants. So there's a lot different. However, there's also a surprising amount in common. So these signs are interesting because when you first look at them, it's almost like they have nothing in common. They don't seem similar at all, for the reasons I just mentioned. But on a more theoretical level, and if you look a little bit closer, they actually do have a lot in common. So so Scorpio and Sagittarius, they're both very emotionally intense. They have very extremes of emotion, and they both are a little bit extreme. They both like to do things 100% or zero. Like they give you their all. They give you their whole soul when they go into things. Now, Sagittarius can be kind of different. Sagittarius depends. It's complicated because they're a mutable sign. So they do give you their all, but I think especially at a young age when they're still developing, they want to just kind of play around and they don't really know what they want. So they're kind of experimenting. So they may give you their all for a moment, but then decide, oh, they actually don't want that, and then go to somewhere else. So, but especially a little bit later in life, Sagittarius very much does want to commit and be, very committed, not even just intimately or romantically, but also with like hobbies or pursuits. Sagittarius wants to get like just a couple things in its life and be the best at those things. And Scorpio kind of wants that too. If Scorpio is going to do something, it's going to really do it. It's going to go all out. We're going to do it the best way we possibly can. Their attitudes on doing this are a little bit different, where Sagittarius wants things a little bit more quickly. If Sagittarius is doing something that it's not naturally good at, I don't think it's going to have a lot of patience to keep working at it. Whereas Scorpio has that grueling endurance to, even if it's, working at like a low level position, it can keep doing that, and it can do so happily, but only because it knows it's working its way up. So, I mean, I don't know. These have a lot in common and they have a lot different. Overall, I would say no, there's so much different. Oh, and back to what I was talking about, where these are kind of sibling signs. With the semi-sextile signs, there's a hit and miss. It's sometimes they'll be best friends, and then they will just turn on each other and they'll hate each other. And then before you know it, they'll be best friends again. And it's very confusing. This is almost like you'd see with siblings that, can be tearing each other's hair out one minute, and then the next minute they're like best friends. The same kind of applies here. It's almost like they're weirdly familiar with each other, but they're also so different that they have a hard time understanding each other at times. And so, especially with these two fire and waters, these more emotional elemented signs, I think there could be kind of a hit and miss there, but I don't think it would be stable. I think it would be, I don't know, it'd be turbulent, I would say. I don't think this would be stable at all. Also, Scorpio, even though it's a water sign, it's ruled by Mars, and so Scorpio could be very fiery. When I was guessing signs, I would often mistake Scorpios for Leos. I would think they would be Leos, but they're Scorpios. Scorpios are fiery. And so, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if this helps or hinders this dynamic. Like, they both can be, have that fiery passion about them and that competitive energy, but they're fiery in different ways. I feel like I could keep going about this forever because they have so much in common but so different at the same time. All in all, I would say no, they're very different. If they do get along, I don't think it's very stable. They do have some things in common, but it's not enough to really feel comfortable and secure with each other. Next we have Capricorn. Next we have Sagittarius. I'm getting out of order. Next we have Sagittarius. So Sagittarius with itself. How does Sagittarius get along with other Sagittariuses? Yeah, this would go along pretty well. Let's see here. I mean, of course, we're dealing with the same sign, so this could be very easy. It's obviously very easy to understand your own sign, so there's that sense of familiarity there. Yeah, so, and this is really good, especially good maybe early in life when you're still learning about yourself. you tend to be more friends with people's astrology who's similar to your own. You tend to attract that because you're still learning about your own themes. So Sagittarius can definitely, be attracted to that. Or if you just are at a point in your life where you need or desire, someone similar to your own energies, you might attract that. Maybe you just want something easy. You just want someone to kind of rest on, because it can feel so comforting just to be with someone similar to yourself, because it's easy. You don't have to, you don't have to empathize so much with someone who's maybe different than yourself, because honestly that could be tiring, and you can learn a lot from that, but it's not the easiest thing to do. So yeah, Sagittarius can definitely be attracted to itself. The main challenges with dealing with your own energy is that, one, you're not learning as much because unless you're learning about yourself. But once you've learned about yourself, then usually you're ready to kind of branch out and experience these other energies. So if you're just playing with your own energy, it's almost like masturbation. You're not really, you're not experiencing all the world has to offer, and so you're not really growing necessarily. So a lot of times it can be really good to have a friend whose astrology is very similar to yourself, to you always have that shoulder to cry on, or that friend, when everything else is chaotic or difficult, you have that friend that's similar to you that you can relate to at the end of the day and just relax with. So that can always be good, don't get me wrong. But the drawbacks would be, not really learning a whole lot. And also it's not exciting. There's not that level of passion and excitement. There's not that like gritty, like sexuality or that edginess there. It's just not as intriguing because, again, it's just your own sign. And I think especially with Sagittarius being more open to adventure and open to different energies, I don't think Sagittarius would be opposed to getting along with other Sagittariuses. I just think they would be more attracted to different signs. I think they're one of the most open energies to energies that are different than themselves. And so I think Sagittarius would want to kind of play and explore these other energies of the zodiac rather than just, solely being with Sagittariuses. However, Sagittarius is a very multifaceted sign that likes adventure. And so there could be enough complexity in a fellow Sagittarius that it would continue to be interesting, especially if they are both wanting adventure. So I think these could be great partners in crime. So overall, yes, this would be a very easy combination. It'd be probably fun for both parties. They obviously want the same things. It would be a lot of fun. Drawbacks is they're just not, like, from a spiritual level, they're not, it would have to be a certain time of your life that your own sign would aid in your evolution. Otherwise, there's not a lot of value there other than just kind of having fun and relaxing, which of course there can be value in that as well. So anyway, generally, yeah, this works, I suppose. Next, we have Capricorn and Sagittarius, and this is an interesting combination. So overall, no, this isn't going to work. Again, we have semi-sextile signs that are one apart from each other, so you almost have this sibling. That's what makes it so interesting, though, because there's these weird things that they almost have in common, like they're both raised in the same environment, but it's not enough for them to really, truly get along with each other. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter and Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, which is kind of funny because those planets are sort of next to each other, if you want to say relatively close to each other in the solar system, or their orbit, their paths are close to each other. And so there is something weirdly similar or complementary, I guess you could say. They're almost like opposites, even more so than Sagittarius and Scorpio, because Sagittarius is expansion, Capricorn is, constriction, or Capricorn wants to get rid of the excess, and Sagittarius is adding on the excess. Sagittarius is, so optimistic, and Capricorn is, I wouldn't say pessimistic, but they're very much like a realist, and Capricorn is very much more capable of understanding these hard truths of reality, and they're more centered around that. Capricorn isn't so much of a dreamer, whereas Sagittarius is very much a dreamer. They can come up with those big ideas. They're not as good at thinking so critically, or having that kind of realism, that stoic realism about them that Capricorn does. And so I think, I don't know, they're almost so opposite or so different that they can't really get along together. However, if they do find a way to work together as a partnership, this can be so valuable because they both have what the other lacks. And so, especially when it comes to dreams or goals, like, running a big business or running, I don't know, a country, or, having an empire, or doing, I don't know, or even just doing like a big personal goal in your life. Like, Sagittarius can come up with the dreams and it has that fiery, spontaneous, charismatic energy. Whereas Capricorn has that slow, deadpan, stoic realism about it, that it can actually make sure that the dream comes to reality. That it makes sure, okay, is this dream even realistic to begin with? If it is, how are we actually going to make this happen? Is this doable? If so, how are we going to do it? And Capricorn shows up every day with that energy to make it work. That's where I would never say Capricorn is a pessimist, because even though it might seem pessimistic, it's willing to show up and put in the work to make something happen. And if you were a pessimist, you wouldn't even bother to do that. So I think there's this silver lining of optimism deep within Capricorn's soul. And so, I don't know, it's like that silver lining that I think could make this almost work somehow. But I almost see it more as like, I don't know, if Sagittarius and Capricorn, they could almost come together, like if they're both in business and they want to do business together, that would be a really good dynamic. Or, I don't see this so much as being like friends, because this is more of like a productive energy. Like, they both need together just to get something accomplished, not necessarily to have fun, or, because again, Sagittarius is one of the most reckless signs, and Capricorn is one of the least reckless signs. Capricorn is always thinking about the future, and so it's not so much, a risky sign, because it's not risking things in the moment, because that it's all interested in what's happening tomorrow, or a year from now, or even 10 years from now. So Capricorn is always, more goal oriented, and Sagittarius can think of, it's definitely dream oriented. Like, it thinks of big dreams that it wants for the future, but it's more focused on what it wants in the immediate moment. It's more emotional, whereas Capricorn is more stoic. So as friends or lovers, this wouldn't be an easy one, because they're just so different. But again, if they have some kind of goal that they want to accomplish, there is that beauty there. There's that potential there if they can work together somehow. Or if these two energies are in the chart together in one person's chart, you have that theme about you as well, I guess. That as much as Sagittarius and Capricorn are like polar opposites and are not compatible at all, I almost can't think of a better combination when it comes to getting things accomplished, accomplishing really big dreams or goals. So anyway, that's enough I'll say about that. So overall, no, this is not a good combination, just generally speaking, just because it's too difficult. It's not going to be fun. I don't think it'd be fun for them. Again, it would be more productive, more goal-oriented. Next, we have Aquarius, which is 2 signs away. And so now we have a sextile aspect, just like we had with Libra, but I wasn't so much a fan of that. I'm more a fan of Aquarius with Sagittarius. Actually, this is a pretty great combination, because, we talked about how Sagittarius is cerebral and more mentally oriented and intellectual, but it's also emotional and can be reckless and wants to just kind of party and be belligerent at times. And Aquarius can be very much the same way. Aquarius is cerebral and stoic and mentally oriented, can be detached and analytical. But Aquarius can also be kind of irreverent and belligerent, and just want to party, want to make stuff happen. These are both yang signs. And these are interesting because they're the last yang signs of the entire zodiac. So they are energetic enough to get out there and make stuff happen, but they are like old souls enough to have this kind of wisdom about them. So I think there's something special about Sagittarius and Aquarius, and so especially combining them, they would very much get along. Fire and air generally do get along very well. Fire usually leads, and air just wants to make stuff happen or watch stuff happen. So air in general is more than happy to follow fire's lead and to stoke the fire. Air can put fire out, or it can make it. I'm stealing this. Okay, and if you're watching this, I'm stealing it from you, but it just came to mind. It came to my flow of consciousness. But it's so true, though, that, air can put fire out, if it's, you know, too much, you could blow the fire out, but it can also stoke the fire. It can also fuel the fire. Generally speaking, air would usually fuel the fire, so Aquarius would usually get Sagittarius going, and I think they could both be partners in crime. They could both, you know, they both do want adventures. They want to go out and just have random, crazy, interesting experiences. They can also be both very philosophical. So this is a really beautiful combination. This is one of my favorite combinations. I think at the end I'm going to see my favorite combinations. And so yeah, and then I don't know, I really see a lot going for this couple, for this pairing. Whether it be as friends or lovers or even working together, being productive, because Aquarius is still ruled by Saturn traditionally. That is still there. And so, you know, they can also be good at world building or coming up with plans or, you know, accomplishing things. So really, I mean, this is a really, really beautiful combination. The only kind of drawbacks I see is that, let me think here. I mean, so yeah, Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, so some of this Capricorn stuff that I talked about would still apply, where Aquarius could be maybe too conservative. Aquarius is also, all the air signs are multifaceted, or there's kind of two sides to each air sign, so you can get sometimes Aquariuses that are more stoic or Aquariuses that are more belligerent. And Sagittarius would definitely get along more with the more belligerent and reckless and fun and spontaneous side of Aquarius than it would the more serious and disciplined side of it. So it kind of just depends on which side we're talking about. I can't even really think of the drawbacks here though. Yeah, I think also Sagittarius could be too reckless. Aquarius is a fixed sign. It's air. So I mean, I don't know. Aquarius can want adventure and want things to be crazy, but Aquarius also does want stability to some extent, more so than Sagittarius. I think especially older in life, this would work really well because Sagittarius would want to commit more, and Aquarius would want to commit as well. Aquarius does like stability to some extent, so I think they would work better later in life. But I think early on, Sagittarius is kind of a late bloomer. It's very outgoing and confident, but it's like a late bloomer at the same time. And then Aquarius is more precocious and like wise from a young age and already knows itself. And so I think Sagittarius could maybe be like immature or annoy Aquarius when they're both younger. But I think later in life, especially, they would really enjoy going on adventures with each other, having interesting conversations. Yeah, really, this is a really beautiful combination, I have to say. And lastly, we have Sagittarius and Pisces. Now, these are both square. They're both mutable, but they're of differing elements. Again, you have Sagittarius with fire and Pisces with water. So fire can boil the water, but then water can put the fire out. So yeah, these, you know, fire is more reckless and Pisces is more... Is Pisces careful though? I mean, Pisces is also adventurous because both of them are ruled by Jupiter. So... I mean, both of these will want adventures. They're both, you know, spiritual. They have all these Jupiter ruling attributes in common. So they both do want adventure, and they want, you know, their life is more about the journey than the destination. They want to have experiences just for the sake of experiencing them. They want just crazy or adventurous things to happen. They, you know, they want just profound adventures. And, you know, they can be spiritual or philosophical. They can get lost in these bigger questions or... I almost think they could be attracted to like drugs or alcohol, which could be good in the sense of, you know, something they could relate to, but bad in the sense of, you know, we don't want to engage in these like harmful activities. So I think they could be very much lost in adventures, but neither of these is very grounded or structured at all. And so I think they could almost be, they could promote that lack of structure in each other, and I think that could be almost like reckless at times. But generally speaking, I mean, this sort of works and it sort of doesn't. This is another mixed bag one. I don't know. I think most of what they have in common is more on an archetypal or like thematic level than it is in a more practical, like, you know, than it does actually pertain to compatibility itself. All in all, this really wouldn't work because they are square. Fire and water don't really mix. but I think certain situations could definitely work well. Again, it depends on what else is in the astrology, but they both do want to adventure and just have crazy things happening. And they both want to be very kind of soulful. They're both soulful and passionate, and I think they can be very sincere, and they can sense that sincerity in one another. Pisces is very sincere, and it wants. Pisces is like the last stage. It's like the stage right before death, and so it kind of just surrenders. It's like I'm here. I am what I am. I want to find others like me that are sincere. And Sagittarius is very much sincere and can provide that level of transparency. And they both kind of wear their heart on their sleeves, and so I think they can relate to each other to some extent there, and maybe even depend on each other. It's just these are the more emotional, mutable signs, and so they're so unstructured. They're all over the place, and so I don't know. I see these as being maybe good friends or acquaintances or coworkers. As partners, I think this would work especially late in life, but not so much early in life. Early in life, it'd be too ungrounded, too unstructured, too wild. But later in life, these are both mutable signs, so they take a long time to mature. They both have many. They're both so open and a little bit gullible at a young age that they attract all these crazy experiences and misadventures, and that's where you get this kind of Jupiterian like interesting life story. All these different phases and maybe mistakes you could call them, but they learn so much from those. And basically from all that experience they gain wisdom, and so especially later in life, these are both very wise signs. So I think they could almost get along more later in life once they're a little bit more stable. Then they could really get along with each other and enjoy each other's. I feel like they could be really good storytellers, especially with all these crazy experiences. So I don't know. I would say overall, no, they're two different. Sagittarius could be offensive to Pisces because Pisces is more sensitive and more, I don't know, I almost want to say delicate just in comparison to Sagittarius. Sagittarius could be offensive to Pisces, and Pisces could be too sensitive for Sagittarius. However, I don't want to just leave it at no. There is a beauty there and a similarity, especially with Jupiter ruling both signs. So, okay, and then lastly, I just noticed some themes that I want to cover. So, there were a few signs that were just so mixed that I may have given a solid answer, but it wasn't truly solid, if that makes sense. Those were Virgo, Libra, even Scorpio to some extent, and Pisces. So again, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, and Pisces are just so hit and miss with Sagittarius. Like, there's something beautiful about their dynamic, but there's also something that it doesn't work at all. And Capricorn for that extent too. Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Capricorn, and Pisces, which are more of these later signs, I guess. They either don't work together, generally speaking, but there's something beautiful that could come from them working together, or, they are supposed to work, but then just kind of don't. Hint, hint, Libra. But, so those are kind of hit and miss. The ones I thought were the most beautifully, obviously, yes, of course, these will get along, would be Aries, Gemini, Leo, and Aquarius. And then the ones that they clearly would not get along are Taurus, Cancer. I think that's it. I think this Taurus and Cancer, the quincunx signs, just do not work. So yeah, that's my take on Sagittarius compatibility. So let me know what you think. Leave a comment below, or you can always email me at manic.mercurian@gmail.com. Whether it's just your thoughts on the channel or if you have any suggestions, if you'd like a reading of your own. And then I will say, if you do like a reading of your own, I am no longer doing them for free/donation. I have become inundated with readings and requests. So I am charging $5 per birth chart reading. And you can pay with Messenger or PayPal. I might make a separate video because I'm not sure where to put this information. My channel is experiencing growth pains right now. Anyway, I'll save that for a different video later. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye.